Hey Vic, what's going on? I think I want to go back to longer intros. The longer intros gives me more time to think about something to say.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I usually have, we just make it up as we go along. Hey, I notice you're out of town there. Everything going okay over there?
Yeah, I was saying it looks like I'm being interrogated in a prison here.
Yeah.
Don't worry, folks. I have not committed a crime. I'm just in a hotel room, so it's a little dingy here, but we'll make do.
Hey, you know what? The show must go on.
That's right.
Speaking of that, speaking of the show must go on, let's just get all this stuff out of the way. Hear the Watchmen, spiritual warfare training, intense training in Louisville, Kentucky. We're going to be there in October. Go to the Hear the Watchmen website. You'll be able to find out all the info over there. There you go. Advanced spiritual warfare training workshop. Vicky Joy and myself and others will be there. So come on out, and we would love to hang out and say hi. Yes, in memory of Russ Dizdar, dedicated to him. So also, folks, this is our new channel. There's been some confusion. I can't find the new channel. This is the new channel, unless you're watching on another channel. But this is the new channel if you're watching on YouTube right now. I know it's going on Rumble. But hey, please like and subscribe to this channel and share it. It helps us make new friends. It helps new people find out about our show and grow. We had close to 17,000 subscribers a year and a half ago. We got shut down, but now we're starting from scratch and we're coming back. And we're building up this channel one person at a time. And if you're new, hey, welcome to the show. Welcome to the fun house. And we've had many different slogans. Spiritual warfare and stuff is one of them, and one of them was "Let's get weird." That wasn't mine, but I did go along with it without a protest. But Vic,
Yeah.
You and I were at a conference. We were at a little conference. I guess it's been over a month ago now, and we were making new friends.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those new friends that we made was a young lady by the name of Tracy Fitch. Okay. And wow, I met her and I said, we just got to have her on this story. We got to have her on to tell her story on the show. And well, guess what?
What?
Well, you already know. She's here tonight, and we're going to go ahead and bring her in and jump right into it because there's a lot to talk about. Hey, Tracy, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Great. Glad to have you on.
Yes.
Good to see you again.
It is good to see you too. And I know that you've seen our good friend Kenny, who's been on the show, and he's happy to be up here in Ohio. And yes. I think there's so many things to talk about, and we kind of discussed behind the scenes that we're going to try to be a little careful. We have kind of maybe a legacy of not tiptoeing, but man, we're gonna tiptoe, and we have been tiptoeing around certain things. Okay, now there's a reason why you're on. You have an incredible testimony, and we have a platform. We want people to meet you. We want to hear about that. So I was watching your testimony, you speaking at a church, and I loved what you had to say. I don't know where you want to start, but we want to hear from you. How did you get to where you're at today? And then we'll probably, as you go, we'll probably interrupt you and ask you questions along the way. But we're going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Just a little bit of how I met God. I was 16, wild child, had a son, married, divorced, then had my daughter at 23. Just was told I'd be nothing but a welfare statistic, and that kind of hurt my feelings. I was a preschool teacher making $6 an hour, and so I decided to go to nursing school. I, at that time, sort of met God. He took my life, started to transform me. My ex-mother-in-law would always pray for me, and I would call and tell her, please stop praying for me. So never discount the power of praying for your lost loved ones. I'd call her from the bar. And so I met Jesus, and he kind of took me. I went to nursing school, and I worked at the local healthcare center. And, I just would see doctors talking to patients in ways that, patients didn't understand. And then I was kind of their nurse for a day. and would have to explain what was going on. So I decided to go back for my nurse practitioner. And so in 2016, I graduated as a nurse practitioner and did cardiology for a while. My
Hey, let me pause you there. For
Okay.
people that don't know, what does a nurse practitioner do compared to a nurse or a doctor?
Okay, so my joke kind of is I can do pretty much everything a doctor can except make a lot of money. So nurse practitioners, we do have to have a collaborating in the state of Ohio. Some states don't require that, but in Ohio we do have to have. But we can diagnose, we can prescribe medicines, we can order tests, see patients in the office, see patients in the hospital. But like I said, we do still work under a doctor here in Ohio.
Okay,
So
okay.
I have a
Sorry to
master's
interrupt, but
degree.
yeah, a
No,
lot of
that's
people may not
okay.
know that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
Continue.
So I got my associate's degree as an RN, and then got my bachelor's as an RN. And then I went back for 2.5 years to be a nurse practitioner and got a master's of science in nursing.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
And then what kind of job did you take then after you got your master's?
So I actually worked with a cardiologist for about 3.5 years. His partner was murdered next to my car, which was a strange day. He went to work at the hospital. I liked seeing patients in the office. So when that happened, I got over into primary care. I also did hospice as an RN, and I did nursing homes on the weekends, seeing
And
patients who
how
were ill in the nursing homes.
and you worked with a cardiologist. How many years did you do that?
3.5.
3.5. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, man, there's so many things, just I love just talking to people and learning things and when you get like a doctor or a nurse on, you're like, man, if next time I talk to a doctor, I'm going to ask them these
Yeah.
things, or I wonder about this, or I throw out my biggest words I got, right? Like, just to let them know, like, hey, I know one or two big words, but
Right.
so as what was the timeline? When were you working for 3.5 years for for a doctor as a
So
cardiologist?
like 2016 till about, well, it was actually like 2018, beginning of 2019. And then I got into primary care. So starting 2019, people who go to their doctor's office to see their doctor, they could come and see me instead. So I had been
Okay.
doing that since 2019.
So for anybody, that can guess here, there's a reason, why we're talking to Tracy now. There has been a big event that's happened in the last few years, and everybody knows the name of that event. We don't need to go into all that and say the name of the event again and what happened and what people did. I mean, we don't want to bore you with all those details, right? But some things happened, and it was international event. Okay, that was connected to a let's just call it a sickness. Okay, and
Yeah.
what was your thought when this happened, when this began to happen a few years ago?
Yeah. So in the beginning of the year, it all started. I would hear stuff, and there was just such a fear surrounding it, and I would pay close attention. And I was like every other American, and, I became fearful. But, as time kind of went on, I would just start asking people, hey, do you know anybody who had, or, and everybody was like, yeah, and they were okay. So I just kind of started to pay close attention. We were doing televisits for a while, which I like to be with my patients, and I truly love my patients. But I could just see the fear. And then when I would ask people if their loved one or anybody, and they were all okay, I still have a lot of friends that were working in the hospitals, and we were told they were overflowing. And, my friends were like, no, the hospitals are empty. So then I just kind of just kept going to work, paying attention, and people were okay. And then 2021 came,
Well,
and that's where it kind of all changed.
so I mean, everybody knows this and we've experienced this. And obviously, when you come to a show like this, you're kind of preaching to the choir. We're aware of those things. Now,
Right.
for anybody out there that has been living under a rock, the fear, the propaganda, the disinformation, the purposeful, lying, right, about what the truth was concerning this, and then also kind of just exaggerating, right, the numbers
Yes.
and what's going on. Okay, there's so many different things we could talk about, from like, the breathing machines and people being intubated, and I'm wondering, add in anything, like that you
Okay.
saw, or because you were working with, you weren't so much in a hospital, but with a
Right.
cardiologist. So
Right.
anyway, uh 2021 happened. I just want to back up a little bit. Like, what were kind of the things that you were seeing? You were asking people, hey, is everybody okay? Everybody's okay.
Yes.
But go ahead.
And they were. Very rarely did I have anybody in the hospital that had it. So I actually had it in December of 2020. And I lost my taste and smell, and I was tired for a couple of days. So my fear, at first I did lay there in impending doom when they said your test was positive. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. God, you're calling me home. There was just even a fear when I got it, because it was so fear enticing. And then everybody in my office kind of ran out then when 2021 came, because they wanted to do what the TV was telling them to do. So they all kind of participated, and something just kind of held me back. I think mainly people were joking about the whole going into a restaurant, anything like that. And that kind of just held me back. I was like, hold on, that's kind of biblical. So that kind of held me back. And then my stepdad did have both in March 2021. And then in May, he was positive and he passed away. So he didn't, he did have the stuff at that time, but he was ill. Of course, they put it on his death certificate, but it really kind of opened my eyes just a few months after the rollout, because I was thinking, well, my stepdad just had both, and at that point, a lot of my patients were coming in who worked in specific systems and were saying, hey, we're mandated to get this. And I'm like, well, hold on a second. I just started kind of paying closer attention and really researching more. It was the first one of its kind. And, I know the one type that it attaches to DNA. I mean, that's a given. That's what that type of thing does in our bodies. But then I would go to work almost every few days, and I would just be notified that one of my patients passed away. Normally I would see 3 or 4 maybe every couple months, but I had 81 in 9 months. And I love my patients, and I did geriatrics, which is study of, my degree is with elderly people, and I worked nursing homes, and I did hospice, and my patients weren't dying until after, they were receiving what the TV told them to go get. And it was so fascinating to me how they turned that and then everything so political. When I would just say to them, please don't get it yet. Just, wait for research. And, they're like, you don't like our current president? I'm like, well, I don't really care who the president is. Like, I love you. But the death became so heavy, and just, a lot of the people I saw every day then were having issues from it.
So
And I
okay,
had to
and
make a decision.
yeah. So I want to mention something to you. I think it was
Okay.
it was last year. I had an idea for some research, and I began to call companies that manufactured coffins. And I wanted to ask
Yes.
them in 2020, I said, hey, how did you keep up with manufacturing the coffins? Because there was according to the news, there was such an extra need of
Mm-hmm.
coffins, and then they're locking everything down. You're not allowed to go to work. How in the world did you do that? Well, the very first person I talked to said, that's not true. It's not, there was no extra need for, there was no extra deaths, okay, when it
Mm-hmm.
came to this thing. So, and one of the guys, I talked to several people would not talk to me. They're like, they acted really weird, and they're like, we're not answering
Right.
your question. We'll call you back. And one guy said, in some cases, there were less deaths because there were less people on the road.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they said things like that. So is that accurate? I mean, what do you think about what I just said?
Yes. I mean, in 2020, I had one person who passed away in 2020 from
Right.
that. It wasn't until 2021 that I saw death rates like I've never seen before. And it wouldn't be something like, okay, the next day, but like I said, I really knew my patients and I've been in healthcare for a while. But it would just be falls, heart attacks, brain bleeds, found in their bathroom, and then eventually when I did resign is when 3 of my younger patients, now to me, 53, 51 is very young, came in with metastatic cancer, who I begged to not get any. And, they wanted me to be compassionate and I love them, but I was angry because I'm like, I asked you, I begged you. And the death rate that I personally saw, 81 people might sound like a lot or might not, but when I only see, 600 to 800 people, regularly, that's a lot.
So Tracy, I'm sorry. One more thing. I'll give you a chance, Vic. Sorry. But just to be clear, so everybody who understands, you gave a description of what it was like before. Okay.
Yes.
And what it was like after. And you didn't see these types of numbers as far as deaths. And then after, that, that thing that we're talking about, that everybody was told that, they wanted a mandate that everybody get.
Mm-hmm.
When that started, being implemented, that's when you saw the death.
Oh, yes. My daughter I would come home from work and cry. Like when I say the death became so heavy, I couldn't, I love my patients. It was devastating to see the families. And, it's like, I would say to a younger person, it's like going to school and 2 people got in a car accident and 1 committed suicide. That's how it would feel going to work every day. And I would try to talk to some people in the office or, the doctor I worked for, he blessed me. He was, a great doctor, but, I said, I can't, because I would beg every person, please don't get it. And they said I couldn't tell them that. But I would say, do we see what's happening here just in our small office? Because I worked in a small community. And it's like I couldn't get through to people. So I resigned.
Yeah, go ahead, Vic. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Tracy, that's what I've kind of been curious about for the last almost 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm wondering with doctors and nurses who are educated, like they understand the science or should, and so they're observing close hand, like you are seeing the contradictions between what's on the news and what's actually happening, as they all are. So I've been curious for the last 3 years. Is it that everybody sees it and just can't say anything about it? They're just following because they're afraid to lose their job or whatever, but around the water cooler, it's all like, we know what's really going on. Or are they really buying into it?
Vicki, I get that. That's probably the most question I get the most is, Tracy, why did you stand up? And, I'm sure you guys have heard it. People hear it all the time. Well, I had to get it because of my job. Or, I got a family to support. Or, I truly think a lot of, especially, physicians make really good money. So do nurses and nurse practitioners. I think they just complied. And I think most of them are comfortable with their paychecks. And I think other ones just complied with what was going on and trusting, because I faced a lot of backlash from my healthcare friends, especially calling me a murderer and, saying, why are you doing this? Because, nurses trust doctors and administrators, and that's all they were hearing from them and the TV. So, but there was no amount of money because I could see it. And, I think more and more are starting to wake up and have some regrets. But I do think a lot of them are, sometimes there's that cognitive dissonance. One, I think the paycheck, and 2, I think the cognitive dissonance is the main reason why people aren't. And I get banned. People, my family got it. I'm like, I quit my job, but we get banned. They don't let us talk. It's like, the one thing is 97% of, people are following the science because they're funded by them. And the rest of us can't talk. But I think it is that cognitive dissonance and the money, because even people who work at factories and stuff, or, the gas company or mailmen, they're like, I had to get it because of my job. I have to support my family, and if I could get one message out, please don't. God is faithful. I just was on the phone with a 20-year-old on Sunday crying, begging her, pleading, please don't go get it. Find a different nursing school. And I got a message yesterday that she went and got it. And it's heartbreaking to me. I mean, it literally is heartbreaking because God is faithful. Did I have everything I wanted? No. But there's nothing in this world that should make somebody feel like they have to go get it.
Yeah. Is there any credence, Tracy, to these rumors that we're hearing, or is this all just fanatical hearsay where there's placebos that elite people are getting, or there's different shots to different ethnicities or different shots to different blue and red states? And is it the same thing for everybody, or are there really a differentiation?
I will say, I think, okay, so I've been testing that actually recently. She gave me permission. I received medical records of a man who went into the hospital after the third one last October. So the wife gets me the medical records and she gets me his batch numbers. So for one, I'm looking through it. I'm not a doctor, but I can go through medical records quickly. So he actually had a virus in his system that was from World War I. And it really had me questioning, what did they put in these people? I mean, this virus, it was called Bartonella, has not been around. So then I looked up his batch numbers because there are some websites. So all three of the batch numbers for this man's was actually in the top 3 most deadly reported for all 3 that he received. So I put it to the test and I asked my friend who's a nurse, I said, hey, let me see your card. And I said, tell me about how you felt after the first one, the second one. So the first one, she felt fine. Second one, she felt kind of sick, tired for like a week. So her first one had absolutely no reports on the batch list. And the second one had like medium reports for her batch number. So I do believe that there are differences. And now I haven't tested hundreds. I don't claim more than I've seen. But I did start asking people, and a lot of people are scared. A lot of people don't want to contact me and say, hey, can you just look into this? Or, but I think there's a fear factor in that too. But for those 2 people, I did see that the batch numbers did kind of correlate with what I saw.
Well, now, I mean, this is all fascinating and so many things. They're using our instinct to take care of our family, against us, threatening, hey, we're going to take away your ability to provide for your family if you don't do this. And we're supposed to provide for our family, right? And they're threatening us with that. So,
and that's what's so frustrating too. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's like,
yeah, go ahead.
Even if we do the math now, it's like, it's still 99.7% survived. And now they're not even saying, hey, it's so bad, we're having all these outbreaks. Now they're just pushing it. They're just pushing it, get it, and mandating it still. And it's like nothing is even getting into the truth about what's happening to people. And everybody tells me stories, because I'm medical. Like, that's what I would try to say. I see 16 to 20 people a day. You have one family member and something bad happened, but when I saw so many people every day and so much death, it was just like, I was trying to help people. And then I was hated.
Yeah.
But I see people just, somebody just posted, and how do they say you can't go in the hospital and see your loved one? I mean, I have this shirt on. Ken, actually, when I resigned my position, I went through a court case where a family in my community tried to spend $40,000 to get the hospital to try the one medication, and the hospital refused, saying, we don't want to be known as that hospital, and so going up to the hospital then and working with this family, then I really started to research what is happening in the hospitals. And that too, I mean, all of it is so horrific. And I'm a nurse practitioner. So when they say we trust the, what, I can find all the research that says the medications they're using are horrific and they don't work. Not just the R1, but the other 2. And I looked at medical records, and it's true. Everything that they're doing is the same and nobody gets better. And there's ways to get people better without going there.
So, Tracy, there's so many things that we could talk about. I mean, so many different ways, and it's kind of fun to watch all of us kind of dance around this subject. Everybody knows what we're talking about here today.
Right.
So let's talk about this real quick. For the people that did receive, that thing, it seems as though, one, that they don't have any protection. They're actually getting this sickness. I mean, we see it with celebrities, right? The first person that comes to mind is Whoopi Goldberg. Okay.
Yes.
She talked about getting it, and then she was shocked when she got, the sickness. I wasn't shocked. Okay. I knew that there was no protection. Now, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse. Okay. I've been studying these injections for a long time. I first heard of Dr. Tenpenny, probably over 12 years ago, back in '08, and she came to Mansfield, Ohio, and I used to go around putting up signs, during what was happening back in '08 and warning people not to take that thing for what was happening then. And but anyway, I saw Dr. Tenpenny then and been following her. I wasn't shocked when Whoopi Goldberg got sick, okay, or when these other people got sick. But can you just kind of talk about that? About people are trying to get this protection, and it's not doing any good.
I mean, and I don't ever exaggerate the things I saw. I mean, this is what I saw. But one lady had it when I did December 2020. She had 2. And then the next time she had to be hospitalized with COVID. Now, praise God, I have natural immunity. December 2020. The one thing I did stand very firm on is I absolutely refuse to wear a mask at work. Like, I'm not putting a mask on. Everybody else, they liked me there. So they let me kind of get away with it, I guess. They wore their N95s. I swabbed 250 people that were positive with no mask and no shield. And I never got it again. And most of them had it, the thing. And, the sickest COVID or the sickest person I saw in the last 2 years that was not in the hospital had 4 of them. And this is where it's like I try to get through to people. She had been to the ER twice, and I was trying to help her and her family to get her better because I said, if you go back to the hospital, you might not make it out alive. And she had 4. But her first response to me was, I can't wait till they come out with the next one. I don't ever want to be this sick again. And it's just like my thought process is, why are we not processing? Like you said, we see all these people who've had 2 or 3 and they're still getting it. I've never had it again. And most people that I know that had it, that haven't had they never get it again. So it's like, but I don't understand why people think they need more and more, and I always just beg, please don't get it or please don't get more. Because like you said, it doesn't prevent people from giving it to people and it doesn't prevent them from getting it. Even with the mandates, it's like the research now, at least they do talk about it, doesn't prevent either one of those things.
Folks, it might seem like we're kind of sidestepping our normal, conversations tonight by having Tracy on and talking about these health and medical issues, but this is a truth issue. And the belt of truth is central to the full armor of God. If we don't have the truth, the whole uniform falls apart. Okay. We are demonstrating compassion for the lives of human beings. My heart is broken because I have family members that have done this and friends and people, and my wife works with people, and the information, we understand that the propaganda is strong. And maybe I'm living in a bubble, but I just feel like the information is just so readily available. I mean, I use the example of the celebrity, and there's more than one. That's the first one that popped into my head. But so many have gotten it. Politicians, whatever, have taken that, that injection, and it hasn't protected them. They got sick anyway. So at this point, why would anybody want to still take this if it's not offering any protection?
And you talk about celebrities and censorship, and I would try to tell people, just please turn off your TVs. Like, do your research. It doesn't take that much. But when you talk about celebrities, I would just give the example of going into the main G search engine and typing in Eric Clapton and then that word. And all you get, the main top articles are spreading misinformation and anti-V and, and I would tell them then, please go into Google, type in DuckDuckGo or something, and then type it in again. And I'm like, he had it. He shares his story, but we can't even hear his truth, and they make him anti. He had it. He's like, I couldn't move my fingers, but why is even he censored? I mean, that's where I just try to get people to kind of come out of the forest and try to see a bigger picture And then really it's like you said, I left my job with patients I love because it was so heartbreaking. And I always try to make it very clear, I did not leave my job. I was never mandated to get it, but I was called in and told that I could not tell people any longer to not get it, because as long as I could speak my truth and, maybe save one person a day, I could still go to work. But the doctor said, Tracy, you can't, you have to stop. And I said, I'm probably going to resign. And he said, well, at least say the physicians recommend it. And I said, they're really hurting people, and it wasn't just even the amount of people who passed away. I would hear people coming in. My memory is bad. My brain fog. I'm so weak. My muscles hurt. I mean, all these different complaints. So it's like you said, ultimately, I did what I did to stand up because I truly love people. I thought it would maybe help out my family. I made $125,000 a year and I resigned my position to go to nothing, knowing I wouldn't be able to get another job. So if people can stand firm and truly do research and know that they don't have to.
And
wow,
Tracy,
I just got goosebumps when you said $125,000. Sorry.
Yes, to nothing.
But you know what? When a clean conscience is worth more than any of that.
Yes.
So
No blood on
I
my
commend
hands, I
you for
say.
that. Yeah. I mean, I wish more people would have stood up. And I think there's a lot of pressure and again, a lot of misinformation in, you know what I'm saying, in hospitals,
Yes.
in, doctors' offices. And I let me go this direction, because I want to come back and talk about what's happening to the people that have received this injection, and what's happening is they're getting sick and they're dying. Okay, but you have not traditionally been anti-injection, right?
No,
I mean, you're not.
never.
So can you just talk about that for a second?
Yeah. I mean, I had all of mine. My kids have had them. You know what I mean? Like, I know where I'm working now, she's been talking out about them for a long time, but I always got them.
Right.
Like I said, I had no issue. I never thought anything about it. The only thing was that I had it December 2020. And, when they came out with it and they said that the type it was, that with the M, and I knew that attached to DNA. And I'm like, I just had it and these aren't really studied, and I was okay. And most people that had it, they were fine. So I'm like, and I'm like, I just had it. Like, people who just had it, their antibodies are so good. But I'm like, I just had it, so I don't need it. But I was never against it. I was never against the healthcare system. My belief, I had to repent because now it's like horrible to me, but I was never against them. Like, the doctor I work for now has been speaking out, with autism and stuff like that for a while, but I was not that person.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, and yeah, I want people to know that you're this stance is a little bit, it's new for you. You haven't been somebody that's come against it, for a long time. So I want to make sure you get a chance to say whatever you want to say. And Vic, I know you have some more questions, but can we talk about I'm seeing stories of children dying, of people under 50 dying. I don't know if this was related. I was at the gym a couple days ago and the squad was there and I was looking around and they took a kid out. I don't know if it's related, but it's not normal for a kid to go out. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, we're seeing athletes, it seems to me like by the dozens. We've seen so many soccer players in the UK collapse
tennis
on the field. So can you just kind of speak to that?
I mean, that's where I think they kind of keep that stuff hidden. I mean, even at the hospital I worked at, the surgeon who did all the open hearts, I mean, he was in New York with his family and dropped dead. Whoops. He's the open heart surgeon at the hospital. And then I just saw a nurse passed away. I'm at the same hospital I worked at. But it's like, how do we, and like I said, maybe because I'm medical, but I hear these stories all the time. 7-year-olds getting blood clots, miscarriages, they hid so much of the research when they came out with the first 55,000 pages or whatever they did, like all the side effects, but it's like, I don't and that's my biggest thing is this: when people get together at the holidays and everybody starts kind of talking, is that when people are going to start putting it together? When someone says, like you know what I mean? Oh, hey, my neighbor, my coworker, my aunt, my in-laws, this happened. They dropped dead. They have cancer. Or there's empty chairs. Is that when people wake up? Or listening to things like this? And my main thing is, if you've had it, get healthy. Find a provider, please, who will speak the truth and help people to try to get their cells healthy. But it's like you said, that it's horrific, and they blame it on everything. Like naps cause heart attacks now, or cold showers. I'm like, what? Climate change.
Crazy. Vicky, what do you got over there?
Yeah, so I'm curious, Tracy, in the beginning when people were starting, this is probably 2021, where people were starting to get nervous because they were like, okay, they're going to make this mandatory and I'm going to lose all my rights if I don't do it. And so they had it under this because it hadn't gone through all of the testing that it normally should have. So they got it through because of this EUA. It was like, well, it's a state of emergency because millions of people. But here we are almost 3 years into it. It doesn't appear to be that people are dropping dead by the millions. And so it's no longer a state of an emergency. And maybe you could argue it's no longer mandatory either. But why are they still pushing? How can they legally keep pushing this when it's no longer a state of emergency?
Vicky, I cry. When I talked to this 20-year-old girl, I cried. I told her, I'm like, and here, so mainly I did medical exemptions and I would put that in my letter. If you will be held as the company liable for my patient, then you can mandate it. But since we can't hold the big government or the, PH word, they're not liable. Then go ahead. But it's like you said, I do not understand. It makes me cry. It makes me so sick. These young people or nurses are trying to get into school, and nurses can't leave their job because they can't get another one. So I'm not sure with regular businesses, but I know especially in healthcare, I would do 5 or 6 interviews while I wasn't working. And that was always the first question, because the big government insurance companies will pull their funding if they don't have a certain percentage. Do you know what I mean? But it's like, that's where my question is probably like you. When are these people going to be held liable? They're hurting people. And, that's what I mean. Now they're not even saying like, it's so bad, people are so sick. Now it is still just like, go get it. Why? I mean, it's like you said, I do not understand how they are still getting away with mandates. But people should never get it. God is faithful. I promise. Please. That's my biggest plea.
When your boss told you you cannot recommend to patients not to get this, what was behind that pressure? Why is you with freedom of speech? And I mean, doctors are always, they give their personal recommendations. I think you should try this. So what was behind his
government metrics? There's metrics. We all have the electronic health records and stuff. So you have to meet certain metrics. And so it's a box that was clicked, and I wasn't clicking the box that said, yes, I told my patient to go get it, and no, my patient has not had it. But that's mainly what it was about.
And this is probably an obvious question, but are they tracking in some sort of computer system patients that are refusing this, and the ones that have and the ones that haven't?
I definitely know you cannot buy a fake card to say that you had it, because it does go to a national registry. Actually, my friend who had just the CV called the police. They got out of the car. She was just having them look at her window, and they said, do you still have this? And she's like, how'd you know I had? Like, they knew she had not anything to do with anything in her arm, just she was sick for a couple of days. And as soon that was in their system, that she had tested positive for it before. Wow. So, and they do know about the jab. I don't know if they'll have to know who hasn't had it, because we can't get fake ones because they register it to a national database.
So, let me ask you this. I know there's a long list and you don't have to go over all this, but what are some of the side effects? We know one of the major ones is like myocarditis, right, in young
Yes.
kids. So, what are some of the other side effects from taking this injection?
I mean, some of the mild ones for, so I left right when they were rolling out the third. So I didn't even, when I say the death, mine were all just two of them. Um, like I said, my specialty is geriatrics, but for my elderly people, like I said, their memory was getting worse. They had really bad weakness. They were falling, breaking their bones, like a fatigue, like they couldn't even explain to me. Like they're just so tired. There's mild stuff like that. I was seeing increase in shingles. People were coming in because when they get that, it kind of reactivates previous viruses, just like the viruses I've seen in people who are still here after it, and they injected it in them. But then metastatic cancer, like I've never seen. I had a lot of patients with blood clots, bleeding in their brain, found dead in the bathroom, abnormal heart rate rhythms. That's like the younger ones. I just had a 19-year-old vax injured kid that we got better. Anything. I mean, anything. A lot of heart failure, heart attacks, passing out, dizzy, vertigo, ringing in the ears, migraines, joint pain. I saw a lot of autoimmune stuff. I had a couple people diagnosed with rheumatoid and lupus after that, because now the body starts attacking itself. So it's everything. I mean, the list, is horrific for a virus that's so survived.
Go ahead, Vic.
I was going to say, what if you've had 4 of them? Is there anything you can do? If you have
I'm
a
with
moment.
the doctor I work for. One, repent. I mean, really, it is repent first that we trusted in something that was so false. And then there are different things online. I wouldn't go to the G1, but, really try to research, find a provider to get you on some stuff to hopefully get your cells healthy. But there is research out now that, like we've been saying from the beginning, that it does go into the DNA and then circulates in the body. But really finding a provider and trying to get on some stuff to get your cells healthy naturally, not with pharmaceutical medications, but naturally.
Tracy, have you seen any of the videos or reports of coroners finding these weird blood clots?
Yes,
And
with
if
the
you have,
main
what do you think of
component. Yeah.
those?
Yes, I think it's true. I know the one tested his own blood, and someone who passed away with the clots, and they're not dissolving with typical blood thinners. We have certain, things in our blood, and the main thing he found in the other ones were tin, sodium, and aluminum, which are all electrical, is it? I don't know. They, conducive with electricity and frequencies and stuff, and they're growing and they're long and they're not even pliable, and no blood thinners are working on them. So I agree.
Yeah, and they look
I try to
really
prove them
weird.
wrong, but I can't. I mean, because I saw it.
Right, right. They look really, yeah. It's just these corners that are seeing these blood clots have never seen anything like it before.
No.
And they're reporting on this stuff. So around the world, but the ones that I've seen have been in the UK.
Yes.
So so much, so many things about this. This is my take on this. And I don't want to make light of this because this was a big deal. Okay. This was a big operation, worldwide, every country. There were so many what I call bonuses they got out of this. They got all kinds of tyranny out of this, lockdowns, taking away of rights. There are other countries that already had their rights taken away, and they demonstrated that. They're like, hey, we already took your guns and we already took your freedom. So don't be trying to use those things. I'm thinking of a place down under, and I'm just horrific tyranny down there. We've seen stuff, in Canada, and we've, they took it to the limit here in the United States. as bad as this has been, as far as death, as far as loss of freedom, I believe that they're going to come back again with something
Yes.
even greater than this. And they've learned a lot by doing this. I think they had a purpose for doing what they were doing. I think it was mostly political, but like I said, they had some bonus, things that they got out of this. So that's of course my opinion. I think that that this thing is real and people are getting sick and it's having an effect on them and things like that. But I think that worse than the sickness is what they're calling the cure. And I guess I'm just shocked that people aren't figuring this out. You know what I'm saying?
It's
Real
heartbreaking.
smart. Yeah, real smart people aren't figuring this out. Okay.
Yes, they turn very intelligent people ignorant, I say, and this is my opinion, but I believe the V was created to introduce what they're putting in people. Like I said, you start hearing of all these new outbreaks of all these viruses and polio, and it's like they injected that into people. Like when I've seen the records of what these people are testing positive for, and when you ask me side effects, so we know that the R medicine, they got a lot of money to give that at the hospital. So I'm like, okay, God, show me more. So I go to the same website, the HHS Federal Register. Okay, what are the new ones coming out? What medicines are coming out, right? Because that kind of tells me what's coming, and I've been in the medical field for about 14 years, and it's like maybe one new antibiotic every couple months, every couple years even. So all the new medicines coming out, that's going to be big money, are antibiotics, a lot of stuff for cancer, blood cancers, leukemia, myelomas, lymphomas. But I say the antibiotic one because I just saw the flu is back, right? The flu was gone, but now it's back.
Looks like we Tracy froze up there for a second. Not sure what's going on, but hey, folks, you are watching Through the Black. ThroughTheBlack.com is the website. It might seem that we're stepping away from our normal spiritual warfare, type of conversation and the things that we've been exposing. But we're not. This goes hand in hand with everything that we've been talking about. Not sure what's going on with Tracy there, but Vic, can you just comment on this interview so far?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to, going on the heels of what you just said, this absolutely falls in line with what we typically talk about. And, I think it was even before all of this hit. And I was listening to a podcast where Michael Lake and his wife, Mary Lou, were talking. And Mary Lou said that she sensed this outpouring of chaos that was going to be coming. And I forgot all about it because this was maybe 2018, 2019. And when this all hit in 2020, I remembered that. And the word chaos really registered with me. And I've heard Derek Gilbert talk before as chaos as an actual entity, not just, the verb, right? And so what I did for the year and a half where you couldn't go anywhere in the blue state that I lived in, my dad and I went everywhere we needed to go that year and a half. We didn't sit at home. We went to restaurants. We went on trips. We went to grocery stores, gas stations. We went everywhere. We never put on a mask and we were never hassled. We weren't frowned at. We weren't sneered at. We weren't snickered at. We weren't told to leave. And it's because based upon what Mary Lou Lake had said, anytime I prepared to go somewhere, I would pray warfare prayers. And I would say, Father, in the name of Jesus, I plead the blood of Christ over the spirit of chaos and confusion. And when I enter into this building, I pray that you would bind and mute every spirit of fear and chaos and confusion and let me get my business done. And that prayer worked hundreds and hundreds of times for a year and a half. And so that says to me that there is something spiritual going on because the flu, the common cold, that doesn't respond to prayers like that.
Yeah. Hey, Tracy, welcome back.
On my phone, all of a sudden my computer just stopped working. That's so weird.
Well, hey, that's okay. We're just gonna jump right in here. You
Okay.
know, this I feel like I'm a pretty good judge of character, Vic. And when we meet somebody like Tracy, I um now personally, and I don't know if I'll get in trouble with Tracy for this or not, but I have not seen a doctor in a long time. I had to have a physical when I was about 24 to be a truck driver, and I'm 49. I'm not a big fan of doctors. I've had some crazy stuff, like nothing traumatic, okay,
Right.
but I'm just a big chicken, and I don't like needles, and I don't like dentist either. I do go to the dentist though, folks. But I had a lot of work done, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stay as far away as I can. And I try to stay as healthy as I can. Now,
Right.
I've conquered a few things, but my diet is not all what it needs to be. But I feel like I'm a good judge of character, and you just are just overflowing with joy, with compassion, and I really feel like when you tell me that you care for your patients, that you really do. Okay. So that really comes across. And I'm setting up this next question. I feel like the healthcare system, the medical system is lacking that word care.
Yes.
Now, I I don't have what it takes, okay, to be a nurse or to work in a hospital in any capacity, okay? So props out to all those people that can. But I've been in some situations like I've had to take somebody to the hospital or be there, and God bless these doctors and nurses, but sometimes it seems like they're zombies and they see the same thing over and over, and they become kind of desensitized.
Yes.
Sometimes I'm not generalizing because I've met a lot of great nurses and doctors and awesome people, but like even triage in an emergency room, I realized that these guys got to remain calm, obviously, right? But it just seems like the care is missing sometimes from the healthcare system. Can you speak to that? And I'm not generalizing or slamming anybody
No.
that works at these places.
Right. No, I mean, and it's gotten worse. I think they are getting burned out. But I mean, I went to school because I love people. I mean, I truly love people. And I, went back to school because, like you said, doctors, they just, and I'm not a doctor hater, but they just say big words to patients and people don't understand. And they become so just focused on the physical part. I think they forget that they're people and that, there's an emotional and a spiritual and a sexual and financial, that people need care, because even when I left the hospital before all this, I would say to the nurses, like, this is not your new car and your cute RN bag. I think there's a job security component. It's decent money. But they forget that we're taking care of people. I would say we're not selling jeans at the Gap. These are people. And so many of them lose that and just look at it as their career and their job and their paycheck, and they just forget that these are people with emotions and families, and that's why it became devastating. But I see it too. And I see it more and more now that they're so apathetic. They just show no emotion. I mean, when I went up to the ICU at the hospital, and I'm just like, does anybody see a problem? Everybody's on ventilators, and they just sit around like, I'm a nurse or I'm a doctor. Who are you to question me? But I'm there for people. And they've lost it. And it's, I try to just encourage people, if you need to see a provider, please look around, find somebody who truly does it for people and not their paycheck.
Um, I can you speak to this because in many hospitals and practices, not only in America but around the world, this injection has been mandated, and a lot have taken it, but a lot have said, like you said, I'm not going to take it, so I'm going to step down. I have a friend in Canada whose wife lost her job because she wouldn't take it. So, I mean, this is happening everywhere. So I would think that would just put us in a crisis of not enough nurses.
Right. I mean, so, and then the ones who got it, like I said, at the hospital I worked at, one just dropped over yesterday. You know, they could cause injury and people. And two, that's another thing when you say that, it's like, does anybody not question why healthcare workers who maybe aren't as loud as me, but are walking away from their careers? I mean, we make decent money. I made really good money, but it's like they're walking away, which is going to create a crisis. And I think a lot of them are, I mean, I've heard of a few that are injured now because they did comply and get it.
And it seems as though this is creating a situation where people are being attracted to the nursing profession that may not have what it takes as far as maybe people skills.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And they're more drawn in for the paycheck aspect of it.
Right.
Can you speak to that at all?
Yes. I mean, but I saw that even before all this. You know what I mean? Like, I'm 41, but the younger nurses coming in, you know, they would just be like, I don't want to work Friday. I'm like, you're a nurse. You know, they're going into it not because they truly care or have compassion for people, but they want job security. And I will tell you right now, we need healthcare workers who can stand strong, you know, create a collateral healthcare system, honestly, but ones who can stay strong and to truly do it because they love people. You know, God and I have the widows. My preference is elderly people. You know, that's who was hurt the most. But even going in the nursing homes when I worked there, it's like, why isn't anybody taking care of them? You know, I'd be the nurse practitioner and they're like, why are you cleaning them up? Well, they're a person. But we really need people who truly love people to step up and go to school for healthcare, and who won't comply with what's going on. But there are ways to, you know, get a medical exemption, religious exemption. But we need people that care to come back into this system because people need it.
Folks, tonight we have been talking with Tracy Fitch, nurse practitioner. We really barely got into her story and everything that she's learned. I do have a couple other questions that I want to ask her, and I want to make sure that Vicki gets to mention anything that she wants. But so the first thing is, I know that you work with Dr. Sherry Tenpenny. She's a hero, and I've told this story before, but I saw her last year, and I couldn't believe she was speaking at the same conference I was at, and I was just like, you know, I don't get like what do you say, starstruck very often, but I'm like, oh, dude. I mean, she's, you know, she goes on all of these big shows. And she's so super smart. You know, like I said, I saw her 10 years ago. I was intimidated by her. And I was like, man, I really want to get my picture taken with her, but I don't want to ask her, right? I was intimidated by her. And I did this year, finally, got my picture taken with Dr. Sherry. And I don't do that, you know, very often. But so she has been speaking at these conferences. And I realize you can't speak for her, but maybe you can mention some of the things that she's talking about, her concerns about the aftermath of this injection and what we're going to see. It's pretty grim. I mean, can you speak to that at all?
I mean, I can, and you know, it's like you said, it is very grim, you know, and I have just been starting to travel with her to work her booth or, you know, help her. So, you know, I almost sometimes, and you guys have heard her, but I almost sit back like, how do you say that stuff? And she goes, Tracy, it's the truth. You know, she said it's going to be really bad. You know, she's the one who kind of, as I was saying, about when people get together for the holidays, you know, but she said it's going to be really, really bad, you know, at massive rates. You know, she speaks it, you know, and you know, she does keep us updated. And we kind of always have a little chat about, you know, okay, how many kids are getting it, you know, but she's like, okay, everybody, you know, looked at autism, you know, and called me crazy then, you know, but she's been talking about it since then. She goes, what are they going to do when there's no kids? When they really start injecting these babies and these young kids and then there's no kids? Because they're going to die off. You know, it's one thing to have a child's body still there with autism. But what are they going to do when they start dying? And she's very vocal about it. And I say, how do you stay so strong? And she just keeps saying it's the truth.
Well, and then one thing that I hear her say quite often is like, we're really going to need Christians to get their junk together, because there's going to be such a need to minister and comfort the people because of the massive loss that we're going to see.
Yes.
So,
yes, there is going to be, you know, I mean, my daughter's aunt and uncle called me a murderer a year ago, and they both have metastatic cancer. They're in their 40s. They have a 17 and a 12-year-old. You know, I say it is grim, and I try to speak truth, but it is going to be sad. Try to get healthy, you know, get yourselves healthy, all of us, because like you said, they might unleash more. I think that was a warm up. I hate to say that, but it's true. That's why I'm like, well, let's get healthy, you know. And Vicky, when you talk about, you know, people not really talking about things, I do think that the thing has a very specific, when we talk about the clots and putting all of it together in a picture, that there is a mind control component, that people are very apathetic or they're very aggressive. You know, I don't understand why the protected hate the unprotected. I still ask the question, give me a scientific rationale why somebody's in the ICU because of somebody like me, but you had all of them and wore your face diaper. I mean, it's like, but people will blame me. I'm like, how is that my fault? You know, so I do think there's a mind control component. And I always say never is so much going to be asked of so few by so many, because we are going to have to comfort, you know, people. And the light
Tracy,
way.
Well, I was just going to say, you know, many nights my wife and I are talking about this situation, and we're talking about like the need for hospital and emergency medical, you know, and I have conversations with my kids like, hey, whatever you do, don't do anything stupid. Don't have a need to go to the hospital, like, you know, for anything, just because we don't know. We're at their mercy, you know, when we agree to go in there, when we need their help. But I feel like this is a massive need where we need some kind of a parallel or alternative system to help us, because we're not gonna be accepted into the hospitals, those who have rejected this injection.
You're absolutely right, and that is a true statement. I've had people message me that they were discharged from their specialists or discharged from their primary care because they refused to get it. They get a letter in the mail saying their ideas and views of treatment no longer align, and that they can no longer be seen in that office. So you're absolutely right. I mean, so it's not even with a job, but what about if you need to go to the hospital?
Yeah. Right.
You know, I hesitate to say this because there's always the people that hear you saying something more extreme than what you're saying. And I'm not saying, hey, let's all become Christian Scientists and just like, you know, watch our friends and loved ones die. Because, you know, we get in a car wreck and we don't take someone to the hospital. So don't hear me saying something insane. But, you know, when we talk about the resurgence of the Church of Acts, and one thing that Russ Dizdar always talked about was praying that God would raise up 10 million Philips. And Philip was, you know, the guy in Acts 2 where they had an anointing on them, and they were able to raise the dead and cast out demons and heal the sick. And this whole idea, like, I'll just give you kind of an example of one of the things that makes me scratch my head in all of this. You know, I spent most of my life in Minnesota where for 9 months out of the year, it was cold and it was winter and everybody was always sick. And every day you'd be like, I think I got a cold. I think I'm getting a cold. And now, no, I haven't heard, I think I'm getting a cold in 3 years. Now, anytime someone gets a sore throat or a sniffle, it's straight to that. And I understand that there's people out there that mandatorily, because of their job or their school or a sports team that they're on, they have to on a regular basis get the Q-tip, and that I understand that there's people that are stuck in that world. But for those of us who aren't, for those of us who work from home and our life is in our hands and we have faith in God, I do not understand why we would go and subject ourselves over and over and over again, like, to something, first of all, was such a massive false positive. And even if you are given a positive, it's not like they're going to give you some medication or something. They just send you home
Yeah.
and say, sit in your room for 10 days. And so I don't know why we're feeding into that. And so I just really just want to urge people that if it's a sore throat or a cold or a cough, like, let's get back to the reality that there's a common cold, there's influenza, and we have prayer, and we have people that can pray with us and for us, and we can lay hands on each other. And before we go to, jump to the knee jerk and go and put ourselves in these hands, let's exhaust all of the resources that we have first before we take those measures.
Thank you for saying that. Ken, who passed away at the local hospital, his wife dropped him off December 17th, and she was not allowed to go in to see him until he was dying on December 27th. And who gets to do that? I met her just through a patient who gave her my name, and she weeps. They were married 28 years. It's like, how do you not go in? And then the doctors document they didn't even go in and see him because they were preserving PPE. I'm like, so the doctors aren't even going in to see these people, and she couldn't even go in and see her loved one. She's like, what God brought together, let no man separate. And I'm like, that's heartbreaking to me. No, not just the death from this, but even like you said, the hospital, stay away if we can, please. Drink orange juice, take extra supplements, like you said, as much as we can, because once they're in there, we don't know really what they're doing. And the doctors don't even know because they don't even go in and see him. And I met with a personal injury attorney with her, and the hospitals were granted immunity in March of 2020 that no wrongful death suits could be brought against them. That's sick. That's sick, because nobody hardly makes it out alive. And these are people, they're hurting. So like you said, I think prayer and try to avoid it as much as you can.
Yeah. Amen.
Tracy, you are awesome, folks. Tracy Fitch, nurse practitioner. You can tell, okay, that she joined this field. She, and got involved because she cares. She cares about people, and we didn't get. I wish we could have talked more about your story, and there's a lot more. We want to have you back on in the future. It's so fun to talk to you and hear your perspective. You're talking about this from the inside out. You were there, you saw these things, and I think you're going to have even more testimony in the future. So now I realize that you believe in science. You went to school for all this and medicine, and you apply those things and you help people. But can you just tell me a story about an answered prayer or maybe a miracle as we close out?
Do you want like a patient miracle, or do you want my personal?
Whatever's on your heart.
Okay, so just when I say God is faithful, the message is God is so faithful. I was told I had to tell people. I came home that night. I was just worshiping God. My heart was heavy. I do truly love people, and God said, step out. And I've never really heard God audibly. I felt stuff, but I'm like, that's not God, right? He said, step out. So, I did. I went 8 months with no income. And I was like, God, just let me come home to you, because I can't take care of people. I'm not living in my purpose every day. I'm sitting home all day, just trying to help people, who are at home, or anybody I could go see. And I was trying to get my own practice, and, I ran out of money. I made good money, but I ran out, and every door would close in my face month after month. I would try to get an office, door would shut. And then I got hired by Dr. Tenpenny. So, and now, we just got 2 vax injured people better. Sorry for saying the word. 2 injured people better, a 19-year-old boy. And that to me is so rewarding. That to me is the miracle every day. To now I truly get to promote health and help people get and stay healthy, instead of always just trying to treat disease and keep people sick enough to where they keep coming back, but alive, because I need them on my schedule. So God is faithful. Don't get it over a mandate. I went 8 months, no income. And now I get to work with an amazing physician and get people better.
That's awesome.
Yes.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Praise God. You know what? Yeah, I think that's a great place to end it. Folks, if you want people to hear this interview, you got to share it. We need your help, okay? So please tweet it out, share it out, social media, Facebook, whatever. Thank you for hitting the like button and subscribing. Don't forget to hit the bell. And we're going to be back tomorrow night with the book that Vicky wrote. Can't remember the name of it right now. No, they only come out at night.
Yeah,
There you go.
It's a great book.
Thanks, Tracy.
I was reading it.
And we're going to be back talking about that tomorrow night, chapter 2. We will see you then. Thank you so much, Tracy. God bless you.
Yes, you too. Have a good